Hey guys, it's Mike with another Gilded Guardians video. Today we're going to take a look at Rangers and what might be best for your account. So in the Ranger category, there's only a few that are in game. We've got Lixus, we've got Derisda, and we have Atticus. For today's video, based on who I have in my account and who I think are the best, we're going to take a closer look at Derisda and Atticus specifically. So what I have done is I've outfitted those two characters to be as comparable as I can. So with Atticus, he's enlightened to level 6, and because he is an ascended character on Radiance level 1, I am unable to bring him back to 5 stars. So he's going to stay right there, but his overall power rating is right here at 371. And I set up a Derisda to get her overall power rating close to his. But in order to do that, because she's only 3 stars, I did have to take her to level 115. But I feel like it should be a fairly apples to apples comparison between these two, as long as their overall power rating is similar. We're going to do what we did the other day, jumping into a battle just with these characters by themselves and seeing how they fare. The only one that I can really do, I believe, is going to be the same spot with the Lava Mind. Derisda is a Hydrus champion and will have a slight advantage over Cinder enemies. And Atticus is a Cinder, so it should be neutral. But that is something to keep in mind as we're going through this video. Real quick, we'll start with Atticus. So let's take a quick peek at his skills before we bring him into battle. So his first skill, his ultimate ability, is an AoE ability. It's called Bombs Away. And Atticus falls back and throws 5 bombs at random enemies, dealing 70% of attack as physical damage with each bomb. Right now, because of where he's upgraded to, he's at 90% of his attack. Smokescreen is his balanced attack. And he creates a smokescreen for 6 seconds around the closest frontline ally. All allies units within the smokescreen have their evasion increased by 50%. So going into battle by himself, this is not going to be a benefit because he will not be on the front line. But that is something to keep in mind. He's going to help the evasion of your tanks and warriors up front to help keep them alive. His landmine ability, at the start of battle, Atticus throws mines behind all enemies. When a mine is triggered, it explodes, dealing 300% attack as physical damage and stunning for 3 seconds. This is a cool crowd control ability if you have an AoE knockback, such as a Nara, because the bomb goes behind the enemy and they need to get knocked back into the bomb for it to detonate. He does also have Gambit, which is his passive, and his basic attack deals 130% damage, and also has a 5% chance to cause knockback. This will be a single enemy target, and so an AoE knockback would technically be able to trigger all of those bombs at the same time, which would be really effective, but we'll see how this plays out as we go into his kit. So we're going to jump into that battle, and we'll go over Derisda's kit before we start her battle, so it's fresh in our minds. But we're going to come right in here to Lava Mine, and we're going to go to Challenge 1, and we're going to run Atticus by himself and see how he does in this space. All right, so we are in room 1 with Atticus. I am going to change the formation and just bring him back to the back row. I don't know that it matters, but when he does throw his bombs, he can overthrow the front line. And so I think he would be in the back of your arrangement if he were on your team with other players. So I'm going to put him back there, and we're going to see how he does. Again, we're going to go ahead and leave it on auto, but we are going to drop it to take off the 2 times mode so we can see a little better how things are going. So we take off 2 times here. These are the bombs he puts behind each enemy. So you saw the 3 guys there all the way running up here. So that's not doing much. His AoE attack definitely took out that line, which that can be a huge benefit if you have a lot of Rangers in the back there like Derisda's that are picking your team off, specifically in Arena, because he's going to throw those bombs over everybody. That being said, in Arena, it does take a little bit of time for you to get to those abilities, but it is a cool way to take out their back line. We're going to avoid this one. This causes stun, 15% chance for stun on a basic. But that is kind of cool. But the downfall of it is he does throw those bombs over all the people in the front line that are charging. So his AoE is really for ranged attackers that stay in the back, mages and rangers. So he's starting this off with his bombs. He basically one-shot that entire back line. He did put the bombs up behind him. If he could get a knockback, these will detonate, and they hit really hard. I think it's 300% damage. But here he goes. He's throwing bombs clear over here. Nobody's over there. Atticus doesn't even know what's happening right now. He's spun back around. He is doing pretty good here. And he's taking a little bit of damage, but by himself, if you had a tank up there stopping these guys, they probably would have got hit by those bombs. So he would help clear that room in a pretty big way. All right, so we're on to that third and final battle in the 5th room. I did have a bonehead move, and I saw a charm in the merchant, and I picked it up. So these front 2 enemies for 3 seconds are going to attack each other. Considering we're comparing them to Derisda, chances are I won't be able to get that rune when I come back with Derisda. So that was kind of a bonehead move. So we'll just keep that in mind as we're comparing apples to apples. But we're going to go ahead and hit go and see how he does with that. So he got started right away with his bombs away, which is great. So he's going to take out that back line. Didn't quite kill him. So you saw that guy ran into the bomb and it detonated and killed him on that first hit. His passive is not engaged yet with a knockback, at least that I've seen. Well, here he goes with his bombs again. And this is one of the disadvantages to his kit, is his AoE ability is overshooting the enemy. But again, talking about having, oh man, he won. I thought he was going down. If you did have a tank or somebody up front preventing the enemy from charging to the back row, those bombs are very effective against that. So he was able to clear that entire room by himself, which is pretty impressive, without any heals in his kit or anything like that. So let's take a peek at Derisda and see how she measures up. All right, so we're going to take a quick peek at Trick Shot. She teleports to a random ally and attack their target, dealing 170% of attack as physical damage. So I'm assuming, just going to attack randomly whoever she's fighting, because we don't have an ally for her to actually teleport to. Aquasphere is an AoE ability. Target the densest area, dealing 180% of attack as physical damage, reducing attack speed and movement by 50% for 6 seconds. So that's a great crowd control ability as well, by bringing their attack speed down and their movement speed, which is very beneficial. This is really what sets Derisda aside as far as being one of the premier players in the game. Linear Assault is her passive. Basic attacks penetrate enemies and deal 105% of physical attack as physical damage. So when she goes through and shoots her crossbow, if it goes through enemies, it will hit every enemy that along the way. And when you couple this with, we'll go over here and show you her crossbow. When you have this critical percentage by 30% on her crossbow, that means each time it goes through, she has that extra chance of critting on all those characters. And so in Arena specifically, this is detrimental because it takes so long to do your ultimate abilities. Derisda's in the back with this extra crit rate are just annihilating people. And it's going through 2 or 3 of the enemies, and it might crit on all 3 of them, and one shot could end up taking out 3 different characters. So that's one of the things about her kit that really sets her aside. But we're going to bring her into that same dungeon. Now, she does have a slight advantage because she is Hydra's fighting Cinder. So that is something to keep in mind. All right, so we got Derisda ready to go in here. See if she can do the same thing Atticus did. We're going to move her to the back too, just for good measure. And we are going to let it go and see how she does. For her, she has that extra crit rate going on with her. And you saw that one shot took out both of those guys with her basic. And dodged it. Apparently he's got high evasion. But that is the linear assault in action. So it's going through the first target all the way to the second. Killed them both. Moving on into room 2 here. And so that was a pretty good display of how effective that linear assault can be. So here she shoots this guy. I mean, she's basically one-hitting each of these enemies, which is pretty impressive, especially for an epic character. And I'd say she's actually going through this even easier than Atticus. Although I will say Atticus probably wouldn't have struggled as much if his AoE ability didn't overshoot the enemies. Because he does do a lot of damage when he's hitting people with those bombs. So we are on to that third and final fight. I don't expect to have any problems here whatsoever. She seems to be going through these enemies pretty easily, just one by one, taking them down. Now, her survivability as a ranger is not great. Rangers have lower HP and lower defense, and so by the time they get up to melee attacks, they're really kind of squishy. But the idea is keeping your tanks up front and making sure that they're not taking on those melee attacks. So it works out really good. But their nemesis really is going to be assassins. And we'll talk in a future video about all the different classifications and how they interact with each other. But that was a pretty cool display as far as two rangers being able to go through a level completely by themselves and the damage they do. I gotta feel like Derisda really is more effective than Atticus, even as an epic character, specifically if you're able to pick up that crossbow with the crit rate. Just for giggles, I want to take that off and we'll run it again just to see if that crit rate is why she's dropping people so quickly. So we're going to go ahead and grab that. We're going to take it off. All right, so we are back in room 1 with Derisda without the crit rate on that crossbow accessory. And we're going to see, I mean, she still just knocked 4 of those enemies out in one shot because of that linear assault. She did happen to crit on all of them, which was obviously a benefit, even without the extra crit rate from that. From her crossbow. So that was pretty telling, but that just shows you like how she can be very effective in arena, because even with her basic attack with the linear assault, she can do a lot of damage to several of the enemies at the same time. So here she didn't crit, she did hit 2 of them pretty good though, and then yeah, so I mean they're still falling right down. So we're on to the 5th and final room, and it's pretty impressive how she just mows through the enemy. She really does a great job. We did get the curse with the stun, so she's looking to take some damage here. I wonder if she's gonna get unstunned. Oh no. Okay. I was gonna say, so even that, like, she was just sitting there stunned for however long. She finally came to. One shot killed 4 of them, and then the next shot killed the next. So she really is an impressive champion. I think realistically, Atticus and Derisda in the same team is not out of the question. They both are great back row damage dealers, and you put some tanks up front and support around them, and they can do a lot of work for you. I was running Derisda with Atticus in the back row with Attakus, and then Tushgrog with Grizel up front, and then Grizel would come back behind Derisda. So my only tank up front was actually Tushgrog and his wolf, and I made a lot of progress with that team. And they just go through it because they have so much damage coming out of that team. So hopefully you found that interesting and it helps you along with your team development. I appreciate you spending the time with me today. Please leave a like and subscribe if you haven't done so already, and I look forward to seeing you next time.